South Lincoln's Wingstop location, 29th and Pine Lake.
This is Lincoln's home for sports talk on the FM dial. Also online at theticketfm.com.
On the internet.
KNTK FM Firth, 93.7 The Ticket. This is the Happy Hour.
You guys going to happy hour?
Live from the Koppel Chevrolet GMC studios in the heart of Lincoln, America.
Yeah, maybe I'll come for a couple.
Here are your hosts, Nick Sainert.
I want to know what it's like to commit a crime without having to spend time in jail.
And Enrique Alvarez Clary.
C is for chunk.
On 93.7 The Ticket and theticketfm.com.
Good afternoon. Happy Wednesday. This is the Happy Hour, 93.7 The Ticket, theticketfm.com. Nick Sainert and Enrique Alvarez Clary are with you today. Hello, Rico.
Hello.
How are you doing?
I'm great.
That's awesome. Better than Tom.
My throat kind of hurts now.
Why?
Those are making fun of Tom.
Oh, because it's not actually.
No, it was just
easy now.
The trying to imitate Tom.
We don't need a bug going around here.
We won't.
We don't need bugs going around here. I have disinfected the space. I have disinfected the mic, the sock, the mic sock.
Mm-hmm. You should have whatever.
Wiped,
you know what? We're not going to talk about
wiped down the table, the whole microphone.
Proud of you.
We are clean. We are all good to go.
Look, Tom's voice is only that bad because he was yelling about Nebraska basketball yesterday.
Let's hope. You could kind of hear it.
He was very upset. He gets very impassioned about his basketball.
Yeah, he gets. I found that out about Tom. He gets very passionate about Nebraska athletics.
Mm-hmm.
As always, 402.
He just cares deeply.
You're right. As always, 402-464-5685, the Honda of Lincoln hotline, the Starter Heyman text line. Both those open for you all hour long, as well as the Starter Heyman Jewelers video stream, Facebook, Twitch, and YouTube. We'll throw your comment up on the screen there. You can participate that way. And then, as always, on Twitter, at Radio Rico AC for Rico and at Nick_Sainert for myself. Feel free to reach out to us that way. Nebraska basketball, we'll touch on this here in a second. They lose a 77-69 ball game to Creighton last night. I'll give my thoughts. Last night, Happer and I had a therapy phone call just talking about the game.
Who was the therapist?
I don't know if there was one. It was a mutual.
Who was the therapist and who was the client? He had a therapy phone call.
I think.
Who was consoling who?
I don't know. Do you know, Happer? Do you have an idea? Would you say you were the therapist? You were the client. Happer was the client. I was the therapist.
I would not have. I didn't think that would have happened.
What, Mark? Okay. So I have some frustrations that I want to talk about. We'll dive into Alonzo Verge and we'll talk about Trey McGowan's. It was just announced. I think Robin had this on Twitter that it was 6 to 8 weeks. It sounds like for Trey McGowan. So which puts him middle of January or so. Who do they play in the middle of January?
Who do they play
on the 14th at Purdue in West Lafayette? So tough one to come back if that's the timetable, but he had surgery this morning on that
come back just
metatarsal.
in time to play Poop Team in Poop Town.
Not Purdue.
No, not really. Not in basketball at least, but still West Lafayette.
Yeah. Rico, did you watch the game last night?
I did.
What were your thoughts on the game?
Well, I was encouraged by the fast start in the first 30 seconds.
Okay.
And then it went downhill extremely quickly. This I had not actually watched this team yet this year. I watched a little bit of the Colorado game. When people say the rebounding is an issue, oh my goodness, the rebounding is a massive problem. Not only were people not crashing the boards and trying to grab rebounds, when they were attempting to grab rebounds, it wasn't, going up with two hands and grabbing it. It was going up with one hand and tipping it straight up or tipping it out to attempt to get it to a teammate where, people were either not running to it, like staying in a corner or something, or already, down the court for a fast break or to play defense. So there was nobody around to get it. Creighton would get the ball, have an open shot, and they were just drilling everything, it seemed like. And Nebraska is just so much smaller than this Creighton team, at least. It seemed like in the paint that they couldn't figure out a way to corral the boards and give themselves not only second chance opportunities, but limit the second chance opportunities for Creighton. And which, like I said, led to a lot of open shots and just crushers after you play some pretty solid defense. You hold them to maybe a bad shot, or maybe they miss an open shot when you're apparently switching and not switching at the same time on just about every single screen. And then giving up the rebound and giving up open shots. It was just crushing after playing decent defense.
Let me ask you this, and it's kind of an answer that I already know a question I already know the answer to. Did Creighton look like they had a sense of purpose last night?
Yes. Creighton was a team that knew exactly what they wanted to do and knew exactly how they were going to do it. Whereas Nebraska, offensively and defensively, looked a little lost at times. Offensively, it seems like it's one screen at the top, and then the screener kind of rolls, kind of makes contact with the defender, and the ball handler either stays up top and doesn't run towards the hoop, or goes immediately towards the hoop and throws up a wild shot. Those were like the three things going on. There wasn't at points when Nebraska's offense was humming and it was, scoring buckets, the ball movement was crisp. There was passes going around the 3-point line. They were going inside, going back outside. The screens were coming. They were driving in, kicking it out, and people were moving around without the ball. But that didn't happen very often.
Yeah, I think here is my frustration about how kind of last night unfolded. I was looking at the stat sheet last night, kind of breaking everything down. And I looked at the point guard matchup between Nemhard and Verge. And I look at Alonzo Verge, and the first thing I notice is 5 of 15 from the field, so not great there to just begin with. In 22 minutes, which was the 4th or 5th most on the team last night, he took the most shots by 4 or 5 shots. The next in line was Kobe Webster and CJ Wilcher, who provided sparks off the bench. I mean, those were the two guys. CJ Wilcher really had to step up in the first half. I mean, the whole entire game, I suppose.
Yes.
In terms of shooting and being able to try to provide a spark off the bench. Kobe Webster really came in and showed that he's still capable of being just as good of a on the court leader and as good as they probably have at running the offense, orchestrating the offense from the beginning. And that's saying something when obviously it's experience there. Kobe might not be your best shooter, but in terms of orchestrating the offense,
I mean, it sure seemed like
he shot well last night, and he definitely can shoot well. But we've talked about it before. Is Alonzo Verge? It got dicey, and I was in the arena for the first couple minutes of the game there last night, and
the crowd kind of turned.
It got ugly fast. When
I was not a fan of that.
Which.
And I understand, a player is disappointing you, or it's frustrating to see, the offense kind of go stagnant and one person try to take all the shots and play hero ball. But I don't enjoy when a player does something, like you're angry at a player and then they do something that is pretty impressive and the crowd's just like, I mean, I guess. Like he was there were a couple times where he would do something good and the crowd was still dead. Like nobody, it seemed like they didn't want to cheer for him because they didn't want him to think, oh, that was good, do it again.
Well, let me ask you this, Rigo. How lively did you feel like the team was last night when they're not scoring points?
Well, I mean, when you're not scoring points, nobody's lively.
This is kind of what I'm talking about, though, the effort thing. Controlling what you can control. We talk about it with the football program, right? Controlling what you can control. You have to figure out how to improve yourself first before you can kind of worry about what's going on the other sideline or on the other bench in this term with basketball. Control what you can control. Effort is something that this team can control. And last night, it just felt like they were half-heartedly in it. Obviously, when they're scoring points and the crowd's bumping, then yeah, you're going to be in it. But when you're, and part of this is on the guard play. from Alonzo Verge last night. It's happened in previous games when there's just been dribbling up at the top of the key and the offense feels stagnant. But on the other side is that's on the other four guys that are out there at the time, not moving without the basketball. Moving without the basketball is a key.
It was a lot of standing around and watching one person with the ball, unfortunately. And like I said, when you would get screens, they seemed, to use what you said, kind of half-hearted. They didn't, and that's one of the things that I don't know if anybody else noticed it, but at least to me, the screen seemed soft. It didn't seem like they were setting them with purpose or making contact really with the defenders when they were trying to screen them off the ball handler. They were easily going over the screens, and it wasn't slowing anybody down, which led to people chucking up ill-advised shots or, driving to the basket with somebody on their hip, attempting to draw a foul. And with the lack of physicality that Nebraska has shown, they're not going to draw many fouls.
Yeah, I just think last night, and it's going to be interesting how Nebraska handles and adjusts without Trey McGowens. He's a guy that is one of your best defenders at the guard position, if not the best defender at the guard position. He is one of your better rebounding guards, and Nebraska needs all the rebounds that they can get. That's another thing. And this is where that effort comes into play for me once again, is when Derek Walker can only do so much down low if he has no help. And I don't know if you noticed every time that Hawkins shot for Creighton, his butt was going towards the rim.
Follow your shot.
And that's like basic stuff that you don't have to be a mastermind in basketball to know about. Obviously, there's situations where you need to get back, transition, offense to defense and stuff. There's certain situations. But that's kind of the whole thing that I'm getting at, is this is all effort. And Derek Walker can only do so much. Obviously, it would be nice if Derek Walker could be involved, not through in the offense, yes. He was 0 for 2 last night, didn't get to take a shot quite often. And
his 0 for 2 was just dump offs underneath the hoop, and then he's immediately surrounded by 3 people.
Exactly. Well, and then you do that, and if you miss a shot, he can try to tip it out, which is totally fine. You try to tip it out to the perimeter, but when there's nobody around,
the perimeter players need to make a play on
exactly. There's nobody there. There were multiple times last night where Nebraska would miss a 3-point shot or just a mid-range jumper, and Derek Walker would be faced with 2 Creighton Blue Jays in his face. He'd try to tip it out. He would successfully, somehow, some way, it would get tipped out to the top of the key or to the perimeter, and there's nobody.
Nobody's there, or there's somebody close, and they don't make a play on it.
And it's like, I understand that you want to get back and stop the Creighton's transition offense in that situation, but at some point, you cannot expect a guy to rebound the basketball going 1-on-3 time after time. Time after time. And that's just effort things. And that's just also understanding that maybe you're not as good of a shooting team as we had thought. Coming in, I didn't think that this team was going to have to worry about 10-minute scoring droughts.
No.
Because here's another thing, and I kind of talked about it during Wingman on Tom and Bach. You still feel like they have good shooters. But through 3 games, you have no idea what they're doing on offense.
No, they have guys who can score the ball in a variety of different ways, but right now, none of the scorers are getting opportunities to do anything. And when they do have opportunities, it seems as if they're very hesitant to do something with it outside of Alonzo Verge and Bryce McGowens. And those two have been aggressive going to the hoop. They just can't figure out a way to finish at the basket with any type of consistency.
I just think, like, thinking back to the run that Nebraska made, and there were times, this is really where Kobe really shined, was if it was a broken down play and he picks up the ball, chucks up a shot from deep, and it goes in, and you're like, wow. But once again, we've talked about it year after year that they need to find high percentage shots. And that's what getting a guy like Derek Walker down low can do for you. And Wilhelm and whoever you want to throw down there. Eduardo kind of seemed to be pressing last night a little bit. However, that's also a key to the offense. Get it down low, work inside out, and movement. But that all requires movement without the basketball. And last night, Nebraska just did not. They did not move without the basketball.
You noticed when they did move without the basketball, they had a bunch of backdoor cuts that they were hitting. Bryce McGowan's had a couple of them. CJ Wilcher had multiple backdoor cuts. When you move without the basketball, good things happen. They were getting guys in the post, posted up at the free throw line or a little bit deeper. You're cutting backdoor and you're getting easy layups or easy dunks. But they didn't do that all game. They did it for a couple of possessions, and then everybody would stand around and watch one person dribble. They'd set a screen, and then they would kind of try to dump it off down low and then not make a pass, get blocked, and Creighton would take it down the court 2-on-3 and hit a three.
I just think, talking about the movement without the basketball, the backdoor cuts like you were talking about, I think back to how the offense looked with a guy like Siobhan Shields. And that guy was always moving without the basketball. And that's why, if I can picture it to this day, he would backdoor cut. Thor did it.
I would say
more recently,
you've got backdoor Thor. You've got backdoor Thor going on. He's moving without the basketball. He's not the greatest athlete. He's not the greatest shooter, but the guy was always moving. He was always trying to make a play.
But it's little things like that where you feel like this team shoots better from the free throw line this year. Thank goodness.
That is a relief.
Through 3 games, they've shot better from the free throw line. Where those are high percentage shots where you can get in and maybe get a guy in foul trouble or just get yourself to the line instead of having a stagnant offense where 4 guys are watching one guy dribble at the top of the key. And I'm not just talking about Alonzo Verge. A lot of guys did it last night.
Mm-hmm. Verge did it.
Bryce McGowan's did it.
Trey did it for a little bit when he was in.
There are just ways that it would be nice to look back on a game against Creighton. Let's just throw Creighton last night. It would be nice to look back on last night's game and say, you know what? The better team won last night. And say, and I'm not saying that Creighton isn't better than Nebraska's last night. Showed that they are, and they're better at having a purpose on offense. They knew what they wanted to do. I believe Kalkbrenner or Hawkins, I can't remember which one, talked today and said that they practice staying vertical in the lane every single day at practice.
Mm-hmm.
And last night, Nebraska had no success in the paint.
No, they were trying to get to the lane and draw fouls because they made their living in the first 2 games from the free throw line. They were trying last night and just could not figure out a way to draw any fouls because, as you said, Creighton was just going straight up with it, just keeping their arms up, and Nebraska was just throwing up prayers like, "Oh, I'm gonna get fouled here. It doesn't matter if the ball goes in or not."
What's concerning about that, throwing up prayers, that hasn't changed in the first 3 games.
Nebraska
so that's not even
9 free throws.
That's not even against only Creighton. That was against Sam Houston that they went into the lane and just chucked up a shot.
Mm-hmm.
And that was against Western Illinois that they just drove right in and tried to chuck up a shot.
Mm-hmm.
Their final shot of the game against Western Illinois
was just a drive in and throw something up. Maybe I get fouled.
You're not going to get a foul call in that situation.
No, not the end of the game.
And I would just like to look back and say Nebraska played their butts off last night. And in doing that, Nebraska would have needed to do the effort things, do the things that require effort. And I'm not saying that however many guys played last night, I can tell you for sure, it looks like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11.
Yeah, 11.
11 guys that played last night. Not all of those had effort, didn't have effort because they're not in that game without Kobe Webster and CJ Wilcher coming off the bench and providing a spark.
20 points and 15 respectively.
And even though last night how Kobe played and everything, I still don't look at it like Kobe should be in the starting lineup because that's a spark off the bench. We saw it last year. That's a spark off the bench that can help you out in a huge way.
You keep the spark plug on the bench. He comes in, he goes against the second unit.
But I just look at the first guy, number 1, Alonzo Verge, 10 points, 5 of 15 from the field in 22 minutes, and his plus minus was minus 13 last night. And Nebraska shoots 26 of 70. Having your point guard, and I talked about it before, having your point guard shoot 15 shots in a game is not a recipe for success in my eyes.
I mean, that works if he's hitting over 50% of them.
And here's another thing is there's something along the lines of when they're not falling, they're not falling. Alonzo Verge this season, 18 of 51 from the field this year.
Shoot or shoot. Unfortunately.
And then I want to go to Creighton here. Let's visitor stats. Here it is. Nemhard. So 18 of 51 for Alonzo Verge.
Mhm.
Creighton's guard, 17 of 31 on the year.
Pretty efficient.
So Nemhard's plus minus this season as a whole, plus 31. Creighton is plus 31 when Ryan Nemhard is out there. That is the role of a point guard. Orchestrate the offense, run what the coach has designed to what the coach has drawn up. Now, I'm not in the huddle. I don't know what Fred Hoiberg has drawn up. I'm not going to pretend like I do know. But I would like to imagine that Fred Hoiberg's not drawing up a stagnant offense. Actually, knowing this staff, Fred Hoiberg's not going in the huddle and saying, all right, guys, we're going to have our dude dribble up there at the top of the key for 15 seconds. And then when we get down to the shot clock, we're going to just
come set a screen.
And no matter what happens, no matter who's open in the corner. And there were times last night that they did kick out to the corner and they airballed a three. Kobe Webster missed one. Lat Mayan missed a airball to three as well, I believe. Like there were times. However, that's a better look than going up and double clutching and trying to throw up a prayer at the rim against Creighton,
against 7-footer.
Which once again, I mean, think about Creighton and the job that Greg McDermott did last night. It's a team full of all new guys. A new guy at point guard. They lost. They almost lost to Kennesaw State. They shot 1 of 19 from deep against Kennesaw State in their 51-44 win. And they come back. They shoot 46% from the field because they're taking high quality shots down low. Now, part of that might be the matchup with Nebraska, but you can't tell me that Kennesaw State is leaps and bounds better, if not even remotely as good as Nebraska. Kennesaw State doesn't have the shooters that Nebraska does, because once again, you feel like Nebraska has good shooters. You know, Nebraska has good shooters.
Nebraska has a good team. They have athletes all over the court, and it's not just, athletes in terms of jumping high and able to dunk and all that stuff. They have athletes who are really good basketball players, but right now it just seems like they can't get it together. They can't play as a team. And as hard as that is for me to say, and as how hard it is for you to listen to, like it's just true. Like right now, they're trying to figure out a rhythm with each other. They're not on the offensive end. Nobody is really working together. Nobody really knows, as a point guard, you should know where your shooters like the ball. Like you should be trying to hit your shooters right in the shooter's pocket. So as soon as they catch it, they can go up with it and hit that shot. But right now it's just I'm going to drive to the bucket, and if I get a glimpse of you in the corner of my eye, maybe I pass it to you, maybe I try and draw the foul. People are just kind of going solo right now on the offensive end of things, and on the defensive end of things, it's the same thing. It doesn't seem like there's a lot of trust. People are getting left wide open. Like I said, they were switching on screens, but they were also not switching on screens at the same time. You couldn't tell what was going to happen. And usually on the defensive end, you have something you're going to do. Every screen, we're switching. We're switching on this one. You're switching off onto this person. Maybe we switch back. But for Nebraska, it was, maybe they switch here, maybe they don't, and then somebody's left wide open in the corner. Somebody gets the ball up top. A person leaves his guy and comes up to stop that. The person in the middle doesn't, creep out a little bit to try and stop the open three-pointer, and people are just getting left wide open, and it was just frustrating to watch because you could just tell Creighton knew exactly what they wanted to do.
Purpose.
They're like, I'm going to hit this guy at the top of the key, and then cross court in the corner, he's going to be wide open because this person's switching up over here. And it was just frustrating because you could tell exactly what was going to happen.
Creighton had purposeful movement last night. Everything they did, they had a purpose to it. And give them credit. Give Coach Greg McDermott credit for that. They came into Pinnacle Bank Arena. That was rocking last night. Right at the start, that place was popping. And they came in and they had an idea and they knew what they wanted to do. Everybody was on the same page. Everybody embraced their role going into last night, including the point guard, who still had 22 points, 6 of 11 from the field, 4 of 5 from deep in 33 minutes.
Took the crowd out of it early.
Yeah, and that's another thing, is that Nebraska it's an 8-point ball game at the end of it, but you cannot go down by 19 in the first 10 minutes of the game, be down 29-10 at one point, and expect it to just change in a blink of an eye, especially when you lose a guy like Trey McGowan.
They expended a lot of energy just attempting to come back, and that's why at the end of the game, it seemed like whenever Nebraska would draw close, the effort that you were talking about on the boards especially would just kind of go away. They'd be within a couple of points, and then they would give up an offensive board and a three. They'd get to within a couple of points. They'd give up an offensive board and a dunk and one, and it was just it was just hard to watch.
Creighton knew what they wanted to do going into last night. After last night's performance, there's still a lot of questions surrounding Nebraska's what they want to do on offense. I think we can all agree on that. All right, let's get to break. When we come back, it's a Wednesday. That means Erin Sorensen from Hale Varsity joins us. We'll do that next, and we'll talk to her. Get you guys ready for Nebraska, Wisconsin next on the Happy Hour.
Follow Nick and Enrique on Twitter at Nick_Sainert and at Radio Rico AC. More of Happy Hour is next on 93.7 The Ticket and theticketfm.com.
The weather has changed, and now it's time to adjust your footwear to change along with it. Stop into Brown's Shoe Fit at 66th and Q to get ready for cooler temperatures and fashion trends. They're stocked with Hey Dudes, Brooks, New Balance, Danner boots, Keen or Merrill hiking boots, and plenty of other options. Plus, they have Nordic beach jackets and Bindle tumblers to take to the gym with your new athletic shoes. So get to Brown's Shoe Fit today at 66th and Q.
People. There are those who bring in bagels and those who eat the bagels that someone else brought in. Everybody likes the first person. Be that first person. Weekday mornings at 7:30, you have a chance to win a business box of bagels from Bagels & Joe. All you have to do is shut up, Sipple. 2 questions for you, 2 for Sip. Win and the bagels are yours. Lose, well, you don't want to lose.
You lost Monday. You lost Wednesday. You're a loser.
Shut up, Sipple. Weekday mornings at 7:30, brought to you by Bagels & Joe.
Landmark Implement is your local authorized John Deere dealer. Landmark's trained and certified sales staff will help you find the right equipment for your needs at a price that's right for you, all backed by Landmark's extensive parts and service network. Whether it's a tractor, planter, combine, an easy track lawnmower, or gator, every piece of equipment in pre-owned inventory is put through a rigorous inspection so it's ready to work hard for you. Landmark's team works together to make sure everything is sold meets their quality standards. Learn more at landmarkimp.com or stop into a local Landmark location and experience the Landmark difference.
Hey, buying a used vehicle sucks, and the biggest problem is who can you trust? Hey, this is Carl from Price Right Auto out here at West O Street in Lincoln. Here's what customers have told us they want from us. They want transparent pricing with no games. We have all of our pricing on our website, plus a Carfax report. We don't want to buy a lemon. We include a 3-month warranty on all of our vehicles. We don't want to play games. Just make it simple. We saw that with non-commissioned salespeople. Can you trust us? Just check out our Google reviews. Again, this is Carl from Price Right Auto in West O. Check us out at pricerightauto.com.
HTP, join 93.7 The Ticket on Friday at Wingstop, 29th and Pine Lake. Try all the delicious wings options as we preview Saturday's Wisconsin game and Friday night's basketball game. That's all this Friday from 3 to 6 at South Lincoln's Wingstop location, 29th and Pine Lake.
Lincoln's mega liquidation store is here. Wholesale Logistics is now open on West O Street as a bin store with tons of liquidation pallets, appliances, mattresses, furniture, and more. Brand new mattresses, 30 to 60% off retail with well-known brands. New furniture also 30 to 60% off retail value. Brand new LG scratch and dent appliances, 35 to 40% off retail. Wholesale Logistics purchases truckloads of smaller items from major retailers and throws them into bins, with everything starting at just $8. Get to Wholesale Logistics, open each Friday to Tuesday from 10 a.m. to 7 p.m. at 2811 West O Street.
Hey, sports fans. Rico here with HIS Auto Care 70th and Van Dorn. Carfax recently awarded us as a top-rated auto service center for 2020, and Lincoln Choice Awards voted us as the 2021 top independent auto repair center. Call us at 402-488-8934 for superior service bumper to bumper. Mention this ad and get 7% off. Doesn't get any better than that. Rico for his Auto Care, 70th and Van Dorn. God bless you.
Now back to the Happy Hour with Nick Sainert and Enrique Alvarez Clary on 93.7 The Ticket and theticketfm.com.
Back here on the Happy Hour, 93.7 The Ticket, theticketfm.com. Nick Sainert and Enrique Alvarez Clary are with you today. As always, we are joined on the Honda of Lincoln hotline by Erin Sorensen of Hale Varsity. Erin, how's it going?
Good. We're just, I don't know why Nebraska weather surprises me, but it's cold again. Like, I thought it was going to be warm for a while, but it's cold again. like it's not November.
Exactly. I walked out this morning in just a long sleeve shirt, and I thought, man, it was 75 yesterday morning, and now it's not, and I was freezing cold.
Right? Exactly. I don't know. I don't get it.
Yeah, so we're going to kind of hit on all the sports here as we go along, but let's start with football first. I mean, Nebraska's coming off of a bye week. They are facing a Wisconsin team that is really playing well as of late. Braylon Allen, the 17-year-old running back, is kind of their guy now with a couple running backs leaving the program. What do you just expect to see from Nebraska this Saturday going up to Camp Randall, which isn't an easy place to play by any means, and Nebraska's without their whole offensive staff, it feels like?
Yeah, the thing that like these last two games, especially with Wisconsin and Iowa, is these are two teams that want to run it right at you. I mean, Nebraska's defense, I feel like a broken record at this point, but this Nebraska defense has been tested at all phases of its game throughout the season. But this Wisconsin, Iowa back-to-back weeks, only 6 days apart, is definitely going to test this defense, because I would argue that these are two teams that are going to want to run it more than really any team that Nebraska has faced this season. Now, that's not to say other teams haven't, but when you think of a tried and true Big Ten team and what those lines do, Wisconsin, Iowa come to mind, especially Wisconsin. So, I mean, it's going to be a challenge for the defense. But then when you switch to the other side and think that this is an offensive line that has lost their coach in the last week and a half, is having to fight for really, there's no postseason to fight for now. So it's really pride. I know I keep switching between offense and defense, but using what Ben Stilley said from a defense perspective, but it relates across the entire team, is that, if you basically don't think that winning one or both of these games and taking momentum in the offseason isn't a big thing, then you're crazy, because momentum matters. So there's a lot still on the line, I'd say, for these players and their coaches. And it might not maybe feel like it when you think, well, there's no postseason to play for at this point. But again, Wisconsin and Iowa are going to be two teams that are going to challenge Nebraska, especially up front.
Now, I got to preface this by saying the loss of JoJo Domann hurts, with his injury and him not being able to play for these last two games for Nebraska. But I think with the way that Wisconsin and Iowa like to play, and more of a physical style, more running right at you, and his probably strength being his speed, his athleticism, being able to cover the passes, and these two teams not really looking to pass all that much, do you expect to see more of the bigger bodied linebackers on the outside for these next two games?
Yeah, it was funny that you bring that up, because we were kind of talking about this a little bit following Tuesday's practice, because we were talking about all the different, like, when you look at Isaac Gifford specifically, I understand he's not who you're asking about and doesn't fit that. My point with him is we're talking about him in that nickelback spot and kind of like what Nebraska can line up, different things it can do with its linebackers and where they can place them. I wouldn't be surprised if you don't see them, I definitely think it's going to be dependent on what the looks that a Wisconsin or Iowa gives you. But I don't know if that's necessarily a terrible idea to, put some bigger guys on the outside, put some of those bigger linebackers out there just to kind of help you prevent, well, the best way for me to say it is like limit the damage, because that's the thing that these types of teams do, is they're going to just run it at you until there's a hole or until something breaks down. So if you can help kind of take some of that pressure off of the defensive line, I don't know why you wouldn't. But again, it really depends, I guess, on what Wisconsin and Iowa ultimately roll out against Nebraska. But you're right. I don't think either of these teams are going to suddenly switch to pass first type, like pass heavy teams. So it'll, Shenander just got put on the Broyles Award nomination list, so we'll see how, I guess, he adapts and adjusts, knowing that these are two teams that are going to challenge this defense in a way that they maybe haven't to date yet.
We're talking to Aaron Sorensen of Hail Varsity here on the Happy Hour. Aaron, now going to the offensive side of the ball, how do you expect it to look any different than it has previously this season? I mean, Scott Frost is still going to be the guy kind of running the show there. What do you expect the offense to look like, and who's in the running back room behind Ramir Johnson now that Sevion's gone and you never knew to begin with?
Yeah, great question. The answer is I mean, I know Scott Frost said for these final few games that he's not doing everything alone. He's brought people in, obviously, that have experience that can help out and have kind of essentially elevated them for these last two games. We know, obviously, Ron Brown is helping with running backs, but I'm going to assume that it's going to still fall entirely on Frost to call this offense. Like, I don't see why it wouldn't. Why I guess change what you've been doing. Scout agrees. She's in the background just shaking around. She's agreeing. I think, he definitely is going to have to make some adjustments going forward after the season when he talks about hiring an offensive coordinator that will do the play calling and allow him to step back. I don't think that necessarily obviously will change for these two games. As far as what this offense looks like, I'm not sure, because I think, I think against Wisconsin and Iowa, I'm sort of at a loss for, I guess, in a perfect world, you'd want to run the ball at them. That's how these Big Ten teams in like essentially cold games, you want to run the ball at them. But again, it goes back to that, can that offensive line hold anything? Can they create those opportunities? And then you start to think about, can Adrian then make those passes, especially when you get into the red zone, knowing that red zone passing has been such a more of a miss than a hit this season. So, honestly, at this point, if you're Nebraska, you have nothing to lose. Go wild. Go wild with your offense. Get wild with your trick plays. Have some fun, because why not?
Speaking to Aaron Sorensen of Hail Varsity, that last part right there kind of gets into what I was going to ask you. I'm not saying that the coaches that were let go were holding anybody back or anything like that, but do you think in these last two games that you'll be able to see more of the wide receivers that are kind of buried on the depth chart, or the running backs that we haven't been able to see for the past couple of games, and maybe Frost does go wild and get some more people involved, not only for the future, but maybe to see what he has and if they can get something going for these last two games?
I don't see why not. I think this is one of those times where, like, you're really playing with nothing to lose, sincerely. And I don't even know. I feel like that should have been the case even if the coaches had been retained. You're playing with nothing to lose. I don't think that will, like, obviously change when it comes to, like, the quarterback situation. I don't think people can expect to necessarily see Logan or Heinrich or anything really different there. I think Adrian, pending, as long as he stays healthier, as healthy as he is right now, knowing that seems to be an ever-changing definition when we hear he's healthy-ish. But I mean, I don't see why you don't, especially at running back. There's been so much inconsistency at running back through this season. Why not just spread it around and kind of see what you have? See what maybe was there that you were not privy to. I understand that they've talked about that from a point of view of, like, well, this person wasn't consistent in practice, or they didn't blah, 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 blah. I hear it. But again, when you're playing for nothing, when you're playing with nothing to lose, why not? Why not just let it go and just see what happens?
One last football question before we move to Husker women's basketball, which is quite exciting to talk about right now. So looking at a little bit of a bigger picture, what do you think the timetable is for Scott Frost to find an offensive coordinator? Because he mentioned last week that that's really the he needs to get that hire first before he worries about the rest of the guys filling the positions. What do you have a timetable or an idea of a timetable of when he will make that decision?
Yeah, Greg Smith and I talked a little bit about this, especially in terms of recruiting, because I think recruiting gives us a timeline. Knowing that a lot of those other positions on the team, like those open positions, are not going to be necessarily filled until the offensive coordinator piece is in place, I think that has to be nearly immediate. We obviously know that, like, the coach that you want is not going to be available until the season ends. So I assume that those conversations won't even begin until post-Iowa, but knowing that offensive coordinator may be with a team that has postseason hopes, and that could change the timeline. So if you can't get somebody in right away post-Iowa, knowing that that's the point where people can go in home and start to talk to recruits, you'd be able to at that point say, like, here's who we're bringing in and what they can do for you. Recruiting is gonna hit a bit of a lull there, because people are gonna go, if you can't have them in place, well, I don't want to do anything. I don't want to, like, commit to something until I'm sure. So I think then your secondary, your original signing day in February becomes the day, and you just have to have somebody essentially in place. I'd say no later than the first of the year, but that feels like a long timeline. I think the sooner the better. But I mean, asking somebody to be in place as quickly after Iowa probably, is going to be hard knowing other people's schedules, but I think it has to happen in December. And depending on when in December that hire is made, I think that will change the direction of the recruiting class and whether you see more players hop on board for the early signing period or then if they wait until the more traditional signing day. But like I said, it completely depends on who he's after and what their postseason opportunities are with the team that they're with right now. And that's the moving piece of this is what is that person doing right now?
We're speaking to Aaron Sorensen of Hail Varsity here. Moving on to Husker women's basketball. Obviously, they found some pretty good offensive success through these first 3 games. Amy Williams wants to play strong defense and shoot a lot of threes as well. That's kind of her forte. Why has this Husker women's basketball team been able to find so much success through their first 3 games?
Yeah, well, first and foremost, I tweeted about this, and it was important. This is a team, not counting its exhibition game, that has just outscored its opponents 298 to 130. I mean, you're right. This team is putting on a clinic when it comes to its offense. There have been some pieces of the game where I know, like you were saying, like Amy Williams wants to see better defense from her team. The one thing that I will say that this team has done well is adjust. And I think that has been the big success point for the Nebraska women's basketball team so far is when one area of their game starts to go cold, they start to adjust elsewhere. And that has helped them in these wins where, all right, our outside shooting, is not going well. That's what happened against Alabama A&M. And so then they adjusted and, made the necessary adjustments to keep their game going, to keep that game in control. So, I mean, I think this year has been fun to watch. Just they have a lot of talent on this team. I mean, obviously Sam Havey is a great leader of this team. But you have Isabel Bourne. I mean, I could sit Bella Cravens. Like, I could just sit here and go down, like, there's Shelley. I mean, I just like sitting here looking at the roster. They have a lot of talent. And I think this Creighton game is going to be a great test for them as they kind of continue to figure out how to adjust when they hit adversity. And that adjustment could be huge, especially once they get into Big Ten play.
One last one before we let you go. Aaron Sorensen of Hail Varsity with us today. I have to switch it back to football because I forgot to ask your prediction. How do you think Saturday unfolds up in Madison?
Well, okay, I want to combine these two because I have to say one thing about women's basketball right now for anyone listening, because there was some misunderstanding with my tweet yesterday. I am not in any way saying, like, don't cheer for men or only cheer for women. I was saying if you are a fan of Nebraska basketball, make sure you bring that energy tonight for the women. They have not defeated Creighton in 5 years. I think the last time they defeated Creighton was the 2015 season. But this is a team that really could. Creighton is a great team too, but I think that this is a chance. So, like, for people who are like, what do I have to do Wednesday night? You should be watching Nebraska women's basketball take on Creighton because I think this could be a really good game. As for this weekend with football, I wouldn't be surprised if you don't see Nebraska just a little more loose because at this point, like we're talking about, like you're playing with nothing to lose. So like when you sometimes have that like pressure off of your back where you're not having to sort of like, it's the talk had been like playing for postseason, playing for your coach, playing for this. Like there's so much like pressure. And I'm not saying that like that pressure shouldn't have been there, but now that the pressure is essentially gone, you're playing to get a win over rivals like Wisconsin and Iowa. I wouldn't be surprised if you don't see Nebraska just let it loose and hopefully have some fun as a result. But with that said, Wisconsin and Iowa are not going to make this easy on Nebraska. I still wouldn't be surprised if they don't get a win over at least one of them. Who I'm taking my money on right now, I'm not 100% positive. But again, I wouldn't be surprised if in the next 2 weeks, Nebraska, or week and a half, Nebraska doesn't walk away from one of these two games with a win.
Which I think Husker fans would be okay with since Scott Frost has not been able to to knock off either Wisconsin or Iowa in his time here in Nebraska.
Right?
Enjoy the game against Creighton tonight, and enjoy the game on Saturday against Wisconsin.
Yes, of course. I'll be traveling up there. Madison is a great town, so.
Awesome. That is Aaron Sorensen of Hail Varsity joining us every Wednesday. Let's take our final timeout. We'll finish things up on a Wednesday up on the happy hour next.
Download our app by searching 93.7 The Ticket in your app store to stay in touch and listen all day long wherever you are. More of the happy hour is next on 93.7 The Ticket and theticketfm.com.
If you're thinking about a new career, improving your job skills, or just continuing your love of lifelong learning, Southeast Community College's Spring Continuing Education Catalog is hitting your mailbox soon. It's chock full of options. Learn how to write a compelling grant application, become a pharmacy tech, or even learn to ride a motorcycle. We even provide the bike. Check out your catalog or go to southeast.edu/continuing education. SCC. Your path to possible.
93.7 The Ticket. Fox KFXL weather. Sponsored by Security First Bank. A relationship you can count on.
We'll see decreasing cloud cover, but a much cooler day on the way for our Wednesday. Topping out at 48 with northwest winds gusting to around 25. Mainly clear tonight, a low down to around 26. It will be partly to mostly sunny tomorrow and cool with a high of around 45. I'm meteorologist Tim Wright for 93.7 The Ticket and theticketfm.com.
Building a house today is completely different than it was a year ago. It's great. It's a great time to build a house.
Bob Benish is the founder and president of Aspen Builders, online at aspenbuildersinc.com.
Interest rates are fantastic. Our lot selection is fantastic. Being a large volume builder like we are, we tend to get very good discounts from our suppliers, which has been very helpful. So if you want to build right now, it's a great time to call, make an appointment, set a budget, sign a contract. You're locked in. I'm locked in. Let's figure out your location. Let's get that lot reserved. It allows you then to have some freedom and room to sell your home for a great profit. In the end, it's going to be a win-win for you.
Make your dream home a reality and call Aspen Builders at 423-6811. Online at aspenbuildersinc.com. Your home is waiting at Aspen Builders.
My name is Rebecca. I struggled with depression for years. I also smoked. That was my world. Finally, I realized that smoking wasn't helping me. It was making my life worse. So I took control and I quit. Now I'm able to run again and take walks with my grandkids. My tip is there's another world out there, and it's a beautiful place to be.
Call the Nebraska Tobacco Quit Line, 1-800-QUIT-NOW, 1-800-784-8669. Paid for by Tobacco Free Nebraska. Aired with the Nebraska Broadcasters Association and this station.
Man, we sure could use an easy win this season. I hear you. That's why I suggested to the wife that we go to Magical Lights of Seward, the area's largest and most entertaining drive-through Christmas light show. So, by suggesting going to Magical Lights of Seward, you got a win? Yeah, my wife said it was the best idea I'd had in a long time. The kids loved the dazzling light show, synced with traditional and modern Christmas music, and we had an affordable, fun family experience. Get your win, too, by pre-ordering your tickets today at magicallightsofseward.com/ticket.
Your home is your empire. Protect it with Empire Fence. Get a free instant quote with the online estimating tool at empire-fence.com. See an upfront estimate with no hidden fees. An Empire Fence can provide privacy and improve the appearance of your home. Keep kids and pets in or out of your yard. Increase security and add value to your property. Visit empire-fence.com now to view the stylish and maintenance-free possibilities for your home and get a free instant online quote. Let Empire Fence protect your empire.
You're listening to the Happy Hour with Nick Sainert and Enrique Alvarez Clary on 93.7 The Ticket and theticketfm.com.
Back here on the happy hour one final time. Don't forget, DP will be out at Tanner's 30th and Yankee Hill this afternoon. I believe they're going till 7 p.m. there. It's going to be 3 to 7.
Forever.
Their ticket weeknights from 6 to 7. So thanks again to Aaron Sorensen of Hail Varsity for hanging out with us, as she does every Wednesday. Tomorrow, we will be breaking down Nebraska women's basketball game against Creighton. That's happening tonight that we'll talk about here in a second. And then Friday, Mike Hogan from Badger 24/7 will join us as well. All right, Rico, we have a couple minutes left before we get to Nebraska women's basketball, talk about their matchup against Creighton tonight, which I will be attending here. I want to talk about Mel Tucker. Now, why? The guy that looks like he takes smelly salts during every single timeout.
Okay. Mel Tucker, probably the best arms in the Big Ten in the coaching ranks.
I don't know. Best arms?
Best arms. Mel Tucker, best arms.
As in just...
He's got the best arms.
Just strength.
His arms, they look good.
I don't know.
What are you going to go with Fitz?
No.
Those are the only two. Who is stronger than either one of them?
Does Scott Frost not have good arms?
Scott Frost does not have better arms than Fitz or
Mel Tucker.
I
don't know. That's a conversation.
It's just a fact. Time. Probably the shiniest head in the Big Ten also.
Yeah, absolutely.
Also that.
Yeah, he's got a shiny head, Mr. Clean. All right, talking about Melvin Tucker. So Justin Thinn, who you might remember, we talked to him before Nebraska's game against Michigan State earlier today. Around 10:30 or so, he announced that Mel Tucker and Michigan State might be reaching a landmark extension. Here's what the tweet said: the expected $8 million plus salary would make Tucker the highest paid African American head coach in sports, because Mike Tomlin, I believe, and Doc Rivers are the other two that are making $8 million. Anyway, that's not the point that I'm getting to. The point that I'm getting to is there were two boosters that it sounds like they're thinking for making this possible. Let me read this. This is from Spartan Tailgate, which is their 24/7 site.
Spartan so Tailgate.
Here is what it is. It says, there are two mega donors that deserve credit for stepping up to the plate here. Ishbia, a former walk-on for the 2000 National Championship Hoops team under Tom Izzo, is the CEO of United Wholesale Mortgage. He recently donated $32 million for an upcoming football building, while also making headlines for signing NIL deals with every single football and basketball player at Michigan State. Steve St. Andre is the CEO of Shift Digital, a digital marketing firm based in Birmingham, Michigan, and an alumnus of the Michigan State's Business College. In the past year, they have had these people have had private dinners with close friends, along with Mel Tucker, Tom Izzo, and Michigan State Athletic Director Alan Howler. I think I'm saying that correctly. And they went on a radio show last night and said, those two guys went on a radio show last night and said that
it was us.
Surprise. Mel Tucker's sticking around.
I mean, one way to make sure your coach doesn't leave for a better job is to pay him all of the money that you can.
$8 million.
All of the money that you can.
And
they looked at Mel Tucker and what
wild.
He's done this season, and they were like, you know what? Yes, let's continue to do this for however many years you want.
Mel Tucker's sticking around. Lincoln Riley might be going to LSU. And it's reported that if that's the case, Alex Grinch does not want to go with him. He wants the head coaching job at Oklahoma. Interesting.
If you're Oklahoma, do you give it to him?
No, I don't think so. Big 12 is an offensive conference.
It up. It's not like you can't find an offensive coordinator to be at Oklahoma.
Does Alex Grinch give up the offensive play calling duties?
100%, yes.
Does he worry about calling any of the plays?
Alex Grinch calls the defensive plays.
He does. But
he does not get called. I don't think it would be that hard to find a really talented offensive coordinator to pair with you at Oklahoma. All you have to do is, find somebody extremely talented and say, hey, I'm a head coach at Oklahoma, and that's it. They're like, all right, I'll be your offensive coordinator.
Where do we think James Franklin goes? Is it USC?
USC.
See, okay, we talked about...
There's he either goes to USC or he stays at Penn State. It's not like he's going to take another job. It's those two.
Here's an interesting thing for you. We were talking about Clay Helton the other day. How he's
got
Clay Helton, Georgia Southern. And if he would have waited a little longer, would Washington have taken him?
I don't know. That's a hard one.
I think that's interesting.
Because
Clay Helton.
He was fired from USC? That was his last stop?
He was
fired from USC. I don't know if immediately another Power 5 team takes a chance on him. So maybe it's Georgia Southern, and for 2 years and then another, big time job, but you don't know what's going to be open at that time.
His head coaching record is 46-24. He was 5-1 at USC last year, 8-5 the year before.
Yeah.
He had an 11-win season in 2017, a 10-win season in 2016.
USC just gave up on him. Yeah, Washington probably takes a chance on him.
Who else is Washington going to get?
Unless he went to Georgia Southern to wait. He knows something we don't know.
What's opening up next year?
I don't know.
What are you saying, Rico?
I'm not saying anything. I'm not saying that, if that's what you're implying. I'm not saying that. Don't try that.
I was trying. Nebraska, we have about a minute left here. Nebraska women's basketball hosts Creighton tonight. It's an interesting one there. Let me go back to the page here.
Nebraska has won by 50+ in their first 2 games.
Yeah.
I don't think they do that
Aaron
again.
told us that wild statistic about how much Nebraska's outscoring. Nebraska, the series between Creighton and Nebraska, Blue Jays trail the series 30-16. Nebraska's winning the series 30-16. Nebraska's 3-0. Creighton's 1-1. Creighton also has a couple in-staters, as does Nebraska, obviously, but Jamie Haran from Millard South and then Morgan Molly from Crete.
Nebraska's currently on a 5-game losing streak to Creighton, however.
They are. They lost last year. They won, excuse me. No,
Creighton won last year.
Creighton won last year.
Yes.
Gee whiz.
They're on a
I'm looking at
5-game losing
a Creighton site.
It throws you off.
So they won Nebraska 78-62. We're out. Talk to you tomorrow.
Adios.
Hi, Sean Callahan here of HuskerOnline.com. Invite